Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I am Steve Smith. Uh, I don't know what I'm going to title this yet, but it's not the one that I had originally thought I was going to shoot today. Today I was going to talk a little bit about gardening. The last few days I've spent uh, pruning some fruit trees and moving around some raised beds, and got a bunch of seedlings started. Uh, and Got a touch of something here. Probably not the big one. But so I'm just kind of taking it easy. I was going to talk about gardening, but a couple of things happened that I think I'll kind of rearrange that. Maybe do that in a few days. I'm not saying there we go. There I am. Okay. I don't know how to look at myself and where I'm supposed to be looking at the same time. A couple of things came up. First off, uh, if you check the markets today, and this kind of goes back to what I talked about on the last couple. Uh, it wasn't long before the stocks hit the breaker again. Hadn't been open that long, and uh, hit a breaker. And at the last I checked, just a little while ago, it's down another 2,100 points. So I'm going to have to not only disagree with Rush on this, and Rush, if you're watching, yeah, right. Rush used to be here in the Kansas City market. He used to be on a talk radio show. He used to work for the Royals, and then he was on a talk radio show, and so he kind of got his start here in Kansas City. He used to live right here in Overland Park, where I live. So anyway, Rush. This is going to be a major economic problem, and it is driven by this coronavirus. And maybe you'll probably see that pretty soon. And I'm going to have to disagree with the president when he said yesterday that it wasn't an economic problem. If you will look at all the closings and that are going on, and all the basketball games. I'm not a sports fan, so I don't pay attention to this stuff. But everything that's being played in empty stadiums, and all the concerts. I'm also not a concert guy. All the concerts that are being canceled, and all the airlines that are tumbling. This is a major economic problem, and it's driven by the coronavirus. And that's as much to be worried about, probably more so than the virus itself. However, excuse me. So anyway, we'll see what happens in the market today. But like I said, it's down 2,100. Now it'll go back up a little bit because, as I talked about the other day, there are computer programs that, after a precipitous fall, they're going to be putting in buy orders. So there's going to be a bounce, but it's long term that we need to pay attention to, and long term it is headed to the ditch. The other part of this, the other half of the coronavirus type of thing, is I'm starting to see people in the medical community who weren't taking this so seriously. They're taking it more seriously. A friend of Kelly's, she talked to her last night, and this friend said that she had just talked to the head of virology at the major teaching and research hospital here in this area, and it's a huge one. It's the one that whenever somebody's tested positive, if they're tested, and they're not really testing too much, they're sent there. So it's somebody that would know what they're doing. And that person simply said that this is much worse than anybody realizes. And the word that she said they used was scary. So it's a scary thing. And just yesterday they finally came out and admitted that this thing is essentially airborne. Before they had poo-pooed that. Always be careful of the people who poo-poo stuff. I know that's a funny word, poo-poo. My kids will laugh, and he said poop. But be careful of the people who minimize and diminish these things. I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. It's going to be the main subject of this video. But be careful of them. Either they don't know or they have an agenda. So they have finally, and I think it was Princeton and I I don't remember who else. It was a couple of universities and the NIH have come to the conclusion that this coronavirus is can live in the air, floating around, right, for a number of hours. And their information on that was just a little bit confusing. I'm not sure if it was meant to be confusing or not, but it lasts a lot longer. And so the concern before, they said, well, you put a mask, stay 6 feet away from people, and you're going to be fine. Well, if they cough and that thing lasts for hours hanging around in the air, how many clouds of this stuff are you walking through all the time? So that's the other, that's just the latest so-called things that they've discovered, right, that the rest of us were already thinking about, worried about, and kind of figured. So expect, like in so many cases, that the so-called professionals are going to be lagging behind, maybe not on what they know, because we don't always know what they know, but at least what they will admit. So those are the biggies on that. Market's down big. This is scary. Keep doing it. Excuse me. And I might throw in here before I get into the serious part of this that for those of you who are experienced preppers, and I hate that. Remember the other day I said, well, I call myself an independent, independent of all this around here. For the most part, I'm not totally independent. Nobody is, and I'm still tuned in to the majority of modern life. But if need be, I can disconnect whenever I decide to pull that trigger, and I just haven't decided exactly when that trigger is going to be yet. But it's something that everybody should consider. Going back to that also, the people who, many of the medical professionals that I had talked to before that said they would not go to work if they thought that there were any cases presenting, where they work. Well, guess what? Potential cases have presented. That just means showed up. That's a fancy medical term for showing up somewhere. Presented. And they're still going to work. So a lot of times, people, we don't really know what we're going to do until it comes. And, planning is great, and it's always good to have a hard trigger if you can. But remember that all sorts of things are going to go into your decision mix. And you got to be able to, adapt and bounce around and respond as the situation changes. Okay. I was talking now into the serious part, and as Rush sometimes says, he says, I'm going to talk about some stuff here that the kids shouldn't be in the room. So I'm giving you a countdown: 3, 2, 1. If the kids are going to hear this, it's not my fault. Okay. I was talking to a good friend of mine not long ago, and he was discussing the difficulty that he had getting his wife and kids to understand the importance of certain things that he asked them to do, wanted them to do, or the things that he did. Excuse me. Probably just my normal clearing in my throat that drives some people crazy. And how they poo-pooed and rolled their eyes and awed Dad and come on. He says it was just impossible and frustrating, as those of you who have tried to do this well understand. Frustrating to try to get people to understand things beyond their experience. Okay. And he said that, and he was really frustrated. He says, it's almost like we can see into the future, and these people can't. And he was exactly right. And what that means, and he went on to explain it. He says, we've seen so many horrible things in life that we see the potential end result of something at its beginning. Okay. The average person hasn't. The average person sees, very little, to be honest. I mean, the average person in America certainly sees very little bad throughout their life. They think that they do, but they don't have any idea what bad is. And I often say, half the time, These people need a real problem, just to give them a little perspective, so that they'll see that what they think are problems are nothing. But he was talking about this, discussing this, and he's exactly right. That I'm sorry, excuse me. The more you've done, the more experiences you've had, and the more horrible things that you've seen, the more you understand how life can go to fine to horrible very quickly, very quickly. And understanding that puts you outside of the vast majority of the people around you. If you live, if you live a fairly normal life, which I do now, uh, most of the people around you do not have your life experiences, and so they can't understand why you feel the way you do about things, why you think. They think you're paranoid. They'll think that you're just a worry wart. They think you're just almost, too much to take. You know, oh my gosh, oh my god. Okay. Um, but they've never seen the things that would allow them to understand those things. They think they understand. Everybody thinks they know everything, right? They think they understand how bad the world is, how dangerous the world is, but they don't. And you can't really um, make them understand, because half of them will refuse to. Okay, the old saying, there is none so blind as he who will not see. Not the one who can't, but will not. The one who just simply refuses to allow themselves to look into the abyss. Uh, and I'll get back to that in a few minutes, probably. But they simply won't. Um, and so I want to say a couple of things here. First off, I want to say something to those who don't have the experiences that some of us do. And I hope it will be helpful. And it's not at all meant to be um, diminishing to you, even though many of you diminish me, and people like me for having the opinions that we do. But it's meant to hopefully give you a perspective that will help you see things a little more deeply and understand. And then I'm going to say something to those of us who have had those experiences that make us see the dark part of the world first. Okay. Um, I've seen a lot of bad things. Okay. Many of us have. Doesn't make me special. There's millions of people out there that have seen bad things. One of the things that sticks out in my mind, it affected me at the time. I still think about it, um, and I think about it. Well, I won't get into that. I remember holding the body of a young boy, about 4 years old, shortly after he had died. I wasn't there when he died. Uh, got there soon after, and for reasons that I won't go into, I was holding his body. And I knew from the circumstances that he had died a terrifying, lonely, cold death um, that probably lasted a little while because of, and I could go on with adjectives to describe what I think this young boy went through, because of something that his father had not done to keep him safe. And I'm sure that in the lead up to this situation, I just know that the father, if somebody said, "Hey, you better such and such," and I'm not going to go into the details of what this was, that I'm sure that the father went, you worry too much. Come on, have fun. You worry too much. Nothing's going to happen, right? The refuge of the idiot. Denial. That's not the worst death I ever saw, but it was probably one of the most heartrending. And it started from a very normal day, a very normal time, a very normal activity. And 10 minutes before it happened, I'm sure everything was fine and everybody was laughing and everything was great. And all of a sudden, life happened. A life that this bozo never saw coming, didn't understand the possibility of, because he lived like most people do, with their head in the clouds, paying attention to football games and TV shows and things like that. He wasn't thinking about what can happen in life. Most people are not going to experience that personally, thankfully. Okay, but most people live far too divorced from the reality of the possibilities. 100 years ago, even more than that, the average person, I think, had a better understanding of the fragility of life, of how quickly bad things can happen, and how bad those bad things can be. Nowadays, they don't. We live, people, if life is an ocean, most people, live floating around on the surface on a fairly calm day. They don't have any idea of what that ocean can look like during a storm, or the depths beneath them, that just wait for the wrong thing to happen. And so they go through life happy. And I'm not against being happy. I like to be happy. But there's nothing wrong with being happy and being careful and having an understanding of the possible ramifications of living carelessly. So to those who don't have these backgrounds, I have a suggestion, and this coronavirus is bringing a good time to kind of check yourselves on this. You might spend just a little bit of time thinking about, and I don't mean just go, oh, yeah, that's horrible, somebody got killed, or somebody thinking about the real horrors that are out there in the world. Think about it. And then ask yourself, is it worth taking just a few precautions and also listening to those who have the experience to be able to help you understand it or to teach you? Or will you continue to simply poo-poo them and disregard them until the day comes when you really need them? Because guess what? These are the guys, these are the people that have dealt with this stuff and know how to do it. For the people who have dealt with the horrors of life, when I was coming out of my previous life, there was a saying by Nietzsche that I particularly liked. And I used to have it memorized, and like so many things, I don't anymore. But it was something, and it was, I think it was in the forward matter of that movie, The Abyss. And it says something to the effect that when you gaze into the abyss also gazes into you. And then there's a second part to that quote, and it's about when you're fighting monsters, be careful not to yourself become a monster. So if you fall into that category, somebody's texting me here. That's all right, I'll get back to him. If you fall into that category, do understand that just because the rest of the world can't understand things the way you do, it's not their fault that they don't have the same experiences. Try to be patient. Try to understand their inability to understand these things, and try not to let it keep you from doing the things that you should. Don't throw up your hands in frustration and go, well, fine, I'm not gonna. You don't want to listen to me. Um, don't. I know that that's I know that that's the normal reaction there. But if you have the experiences, to see the future, um, stick it out. Don't abandon these people. They don't understand because they can't. They can't because they don't have the life experiences. But they still need you there doing the things that you know need to be done. Okay. Uh, Emergencies really bring out the difference in people and life experiences. And, we're all better at different things. So whatever you're good at, continue to be good at that, and assume and retain that responsibility for fulfilling that role. And if you don't have those experiences, um, be willing to learn. Open your mind up just a little bit, and realize that the people who do have these experiences, even though they don't talk about them a lot, because it's not what we talk about in polite society, right? Um, you can learn something from them, and don't be so dismissive. Your life could depend on it. Okay. So anyway, uh, and you know what? I should have said uh, at no, I won't. I'll save that for another one. Anyhow, you all have a good day. I'll come back and do another one in the next day or two. But keep an eye on that market. We're really going to run into some problems. Um, every day they're admitting to more. They're so-called discovering more. We don't know if that's really discovering or if they're just bringing it out more. But pay attention, stay tuned in, and do what you think you need to do. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. But the how well is the how well. You know, if you don't do it too well now, you're not going to live too well tomorrow. So do your best. And have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.